the second thing is I really believe that the builders of the future are just people that believe they're competent. And that's really all we're teaching at Shelter Institute. That we teach, obviously, like Dad said, the 14 different basements types, and you'll wire an outlet and things like that. But beyond that, the most important thing about these courses that we teach are that anybody is a competent human being. They just need to believe that they're competent and they can accomplish it.
I mean, do you think that when Lewis and Clark were headed west trapping, that they stumbled upon people and then asked, like, hey, did you go to a class to build this cabin for yourself? No. But we live in a world in which we're told that the only way in order to do something is you got to be like an expert in it, and people get more and more in this. And then people end up doing nothing because they're just verklempt and they think, oh my God, am I even qualified to go outside now, Welcome to Housing Matters, the podcast that covers everything real estate, from buying your first home to building your investment portfolio. Hosted by me, Matt Pouliot, of Pouliot Real Estate. Each episode brings expert insights, smart strategies, and real talk on housing and affordability. If it's about real estate, it matters here. Today, I'm really thrilled to have joining us for our 18th episode of Housing Matters, Clayton and Gaius Hennin of the Shelter Institute right here in Maine. The Shelter Institute is a nationally recognized family-run school and building company based in Maine that's been teaching people how to build homes since 1974. With more than 15,000 students trained and over 3,000 homes built, Shelter Institute offers a wide range of accredited courses from timber framing and home design to construction fundamentals. Now they've grown their YouTube channel to over 113,000 subscribers with over 3 million views, and they offer accessible educational content, behind-the-scene looks at what building process is like and how to get people building their own properties all around the world. Really excited to have you guys here joining me today for Housing Matters. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
For sure. So I like to get started really with just helping the audience better understand a little bit more about you guys, and maybe a little bit from you about how the history of the company, like how things got going. And now, it's progressed into third generation?
Third generation.
Which is almost unheard of these days. So tell us more.
Sure. So I'll start at the start. I was 5 years old when I finally convinced my parents to start this business. So it was my parents, Pat and Patsy, Hennin, that started the business, Clayton's grandparents, back in 1974. And they both had parents that were lifelong learners. And they met in college. An incredibly romantic story. My dad proposed 24 hours into their first date that did in fact last about 24 hours. So
wow,
they were destined to be together. But both of my dad's parents were attorneys. My mom's father was also an attorney. So of course my dad became an attorney. My mom was a math major. They both did a little bit of teaching. Had some experience that way. But my dad grew up on a farm, and when you grow up on a farm, you basically just learn to do everything. So, if a tractor broke, they fixed it. If they needed a barn, they built it. If the house needed a new roof, they would put a new roof on it. So he had this very hands-on childhood where they basically just did everything themselves, very self-sufficient people. My dad's parents moved to the States after World War II, where they basically lost everything to the Germans. So they had to completely start over. They were both graduated from the Sorbonne in Paris as attorneys. Then they came here and became farmers.
Wow.
So anyway, Dad got a job in Portland at an environmental law firm. And one of the senior partners at some point expressed that he wanted to sort of walk the talk and build an off-the-grid solar home. And at that time, it was very unique. There weren't so many accessible things like we have today to be able to build, an off-the-grid solar home and so on. And he was having a hard time finding it. And my dad said, I can do that for you. And that's basically what launched it all. So he built this home that was highly insulated so that all of the systems needed typically for heating and cooling were sort of minimized. It just didn't matter that much. and a lot of the hot water was provided by solar and so on. And that house made it into the press in a huge way. AP picked it up, and it became this nationwide story.
Mm.
And that my parents started getting letters they from people who wanted them to do the same thing for them. And so my parents were sort of faced with this choice: do we want to become house builders, or is there another way? And they decided that they would teach people to do that for themselves. And I think, they both had this very unique approach to life. And I think it's certainly based on the fact that their parents both were just adamant about, learning throughout your entire life, never stop learning. And of course, my dad's sort of, very innate competence as, a result of growing up on the farm. He believed this insane idea that you could teach people to build their own homes. And they really believed it. You really need to believe that to stand in front of a group of 50 people and talk to them about the physics of building and things like that. So they found a Masonic temple that was available for rent on Front Street in Bath. And we moved from Falmouth, Maine to Woolwich, Maine. And in the process of getting the business going, Mom and Dad built a unique little timber frame on a 8-acre lot in Woolwich. And that was the house that I grew up in. We didn't have any plumbing in the house, any running water. I shouldn't say plumbing. We didn't have running water until I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
Put an addition on the house that had running water. It was amazing. Prior to that, we had a hand pump in the kitchen.
Every day I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for in the morning, and some days it is just like hot water on demand.
It's incredible. Right. Yeah. And that was an amazing experience, being able to help build that house and then add to it. I've often heard Dad say that your house should free you. And I think when you ask most people today, do you feel like your house frees you between the mortgage and the maintenance and so on? I don't think most people feel that their house frees them. That first house that my parents built, I think really freed them in so many different ways. And that is what they were sort of preaching to the students, starting in 1974, this idea that you can really be in charge of your own destiny by building your own home. And they were fortunate. There are many places where we can sort of point to luck in this story. Be sort of arrogant not to think that luck has played a role. It certainly has. So they were starting this business sort of in the face of the first oil crisis. And so everyone was absolutely panicked about how are we going to pay for the fuel to heat our home this winter and so on. So immediately there was a huge appeal. And I remember the post office delivering duffel sacks of letters.
Really?
Hundreds and hundreds of letters. I remember my mom used to post some of them on the bulletin board in the office, like literally to the people who know how to build good homes in Bath, Maine. And the USPS got it delivered.
Well,
it's just amazing, funny thing. So in 1979, we bought a much larger building in Bath and moved out of that basically one classroom building. And it was a building that had been condemned by Bath, and Dad spent 2 years doing a deep renovation to the building. We now had 5 levels, 3 or 4 classrooms. And I remember in the late 80s, we would have 150 to 200 people per class. Every class was getting taught 4 times. There was a huge line out the door on the first day of the class. Just an amazing thing as a kid to grow up in that environment, because we literally had people from all over the world. I was meeting amazing people living in Woolwich, Maine. It was a phenomenal experience. So that's just sort of the history of the business in short. I grew up in the business, working in the business, obviously. So when I went to college, the only thing I wanted to do was get away from the business. So I majored in engineering, and my concentration was in steel and concrete because I wanted to build skyscrapers. Didn't want to work with wood.
That's interesting.
Somewhere along the line, I realized that there was a lot of appeal to this business. I grew up, I guess you could say, and started to really appreciate it. And so after graduation, I went directly back to Shelter and started working there. Eventually got my license as an engineer, and it's a small family business in the state of Maine. We've got about 15 employees now. So as a result of that, I wear a lot of hats in the business. I'm a licensed truck driver, licensed professional engineer, teach classes there, do the structural design for our timber frames. And I also work. We have a part of the business that designs and builds timber frames. So I operate the crane, I deliver the timber frame to the job site. Really in keeping with the original ethos of the business, we are all a very hands-on business. And I think one of the things that sets us apart a little bit is that we're teachers that build, builders that teach. And we also have a tool store, ironically, and we use those tools. So we can really speak to the efficacy of the tools, how to maintain them, which tool is best for which project. So it's an absolute blast to work in the business. The notion that do what you love, you never work for a day. We're just reminded of it all the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you're coming up now as the third generation, and probably not so far removed from your own, I got to get the heck out of here, but now I'm coming back experience, right? Can you tell us more about what, like what's Shelter 3.0 look like?
Sure. So some of my earliest memories of Shelter were I used to nap in the back of the classroom when Dad was teaching. And then he used to let us skip school to go to, hopefully Mom doesn't watch this, but
we can have that.
He used to let us skip school to go to the job site to build houses with the crew. So that was like my earliest memories of Shelter. And then I went to school for international business in Mandarin, and I studied in Shanghai, and I was going to China to do business with a focus in marketing. And I graduated in 2019, and then COVID, March 2020. In the interim between when I graduated and COVID starting, I got a job as a marketing consultant at Sinclair Broadcast Group, WGME, in Portland. And the rule at Shelter for family members is that you have to get a promotion before you're allowed to, at a different company, before you're allowed to work at Shelter. And
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah. And so I got a promotion, kind of a title change, I guess. I was a marketing consultant, changed to digital marketing consultant.
That was your promotion.
But it was, because I was obsessed with what they were doing digitally and how that could be applied to different businesses.
Yeah.
And so I got that, and then talked with the family basically, and literally applied to work at Shelter, had interviews, and got a job. I think my title was like marketing, but it was and just started doing anything that anybody needed. But really my role currently at Shelter is I do the marketing and strategy of growth. And so every day I'm just working with our excellent agency, Helm, in Portland, and with our video media team to really just create the most compelling story and share that with the largest audience that we can for our business. And that's largely what I do, but I go to all the job sites and help teach, and obviously all the real important things for the business as well.
That's interesting that you, like everyone else that wanted to work at Shelter, had to interview. Well, although you didn't have to interview, did you guys?
No, my generation had it easy.
They just right in.
Coasted in.
Yeah, coasted right in.
Blueberry is my partner, and she and I are both very proud of the fact that we did not ruin the business.
Blueberry's your sister, right?
My sister, yeah. So that there was something, to pass on to the next generation. And she has 3 kids as well that are, we never know, but potentially interested in the business. Clayton made it very clear his entire childhood that he wanted nothing to do with the business. So I was really shocked when I got the phone call from him that he was interested in working in the business. He introduced the topic by saying, "Dad, I got a raise today," or "Dad, I got a promotion today." I had no idea.
business.
Oh, that's
You have siblings, right?
Yes, I have 2 younger brothers, and we're each 3 years apart.
Are they interested in?
Yeah. And so Nick, my middle brother, is an engineer. I'm the only non-engineer.
Okay.
I'm the annoying marketing guy.
Hey, that's good. We like marketing people.
Yeah. But he works on oil rigs, so he's doing like 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off, and he talks about
Has he got a promotion yet?
not yet.
Yeah, I think he's just waiting for that. I think he loves his job, but he does talk about there's something very dreamy about the idea of working with your family. So he does talk about that in the future. And then Tanner's worked at Shelter for the youngest brother for many summers, and he's at school right now at University of Maine for civil engineering. So he has a bit of a path before he would work at Shelter, just because he needs to go get his PE at a different firm and everything like that. But
Then he could stamp all your plans out of handy.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting because in Maine, as you know, we have this among the oldest workforce,
Mhm.
especially in the trades. And so this idea of how do you inspire the next generation to come along? And I think a sense or piece of the pie, if you will, ownership is really important, to a millennial and Gen Z. And like, okay, I'm willing to pour my heart and soul into that, but am I just doing it for you, or is this us,
Sure.
And it seems like you've inspired a culture of us, that people want to come back to and be a part of. And not also the notion of like, I did this all on my own. And, it seems like they have a sense of, part of being a part of it.
Totally. Our team is, I mean, we talk about this all the time. We're like a 50-year-old startup in the way that we run the
Yeah.
company, but it's everybody on our team is incredibly valuable to the team as a whole. And I think part of that is just that A players like working with A players, and we really look to hire A players.
Yeah.
And
Can you tell he's the marketing guy?
It's good. Yeah.
and it's just compounded over time through that. And so it's incredible to be a part of that,
Yeah. Well, and your dad and Aunt Blueberry didn't mess it up. So there's something to work with
Absolutely.
here. I would say more than just
Still
something.
something left. Yeah.
So I want to shift a little bit about from the formation of the company and how we are now and moving into the third generation to, timber frame kits. And you guys have a really hands-on kind of learning approach. So maybe we can talk about how it is that the kits that you have, how they work, and then also how you utilize your platform to help educate people about what to do.
So the kit idea really was born out of a desire to get accurate pricing out in front of the public. That was when I started in the business selling timber frames. A big part of my job was sales. I had to convince people that it was a good idea to buy a timber frame. I had to educate them about what a timber frame brought to the house game. And so price was sometimes a bit of an issue. Not necessarily the timber frames are more expensive, but helping people define what the cost of the timber frame would be, because it's a very different thing. The International Residential Code specifically exempts timber frames from the structural code. There's nothing in there about how to build a traditional timber frame. So you can't build a timber frame traditionally, or I should say, you can't build a timber frame prescriptively from the building code. So anyway, we developed these kits that were very clear cut. There was, the kit was very well defined from a structural standpoint. We knew exactly how many board feet of lumber would go into it, and we knew exactly how long it took to cut it, because these were frames that we were selling to our customers. They're very basic designs. So we got that pricing information up on the website, and as a way to help people from the very beginning understand what the cost of the timber frame would be. Now, as you mentioned, we teach people in our class how to design and build their own homes, but Shelter Institute has become synonymous with timber framing. And so often people come take that building science class with the intention of building specifically a timber frame, not a stick built, not an ICF house, and so on. So the kits are often used by our students as a way to sort of jumpstart the process. As you can imagine, the structural design of something that is not prescriptively defined by the building code is intimidating, potentially. And so having that bit all taken care of, where you have a competent structure that is delivered to your site, and possibly raised, is a huge jumpstart to the building process.
Yeah, definitely. And when you receive material at your site, is it raw, like trees that you turn into timbers, or are you
Great
getting them?
question. Great
Yeah.
question. We have specifically opted out of milling our own timber. So when it's delivered to our facility, it's planed 4 sides and it's full dimension. So an 8x8 measures out at 8 inches by 8 inches.
And is it dry material? Like,
It is not.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
no. We sort of joke that it's pond dry. These are usually, this is a custom timber order. So often the sawyers aren't cutting the trees until they receive the order.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, our preference is to build with green wood. So we like to get the timbers in, get them cut, and then take those timbers to the job site and put the timber frame together so that the timbers can dry together. The joinery really locks everything together, and to a large extent, it helps prevent warping and checking as the timbers dry.
These are all the reasons why you need a very detailed YouTube page in order to explain these things to people. Yeah, that's fascinating. So if dry timbers show up to my job site, then maybe ask more questions.
That's right.
Okay.
It's been sitting around.
So you've taught over 15,000 students, and what could they expect to learn from this compared to like a different home building type of a class?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a building science-based class where we really break down all of the different systems of the house. So rather than telling you, do this, frame your house this way, build your foundation this way, we always look at the why. Why is a house framed like this? What's important? What makes the house stay plumb, level, and square over time? What's holding it together? What are the drawbacks, and so on? From a physics standpoint, Dad teaches this one class about the physics of materials, where he tells the students to imagine themselves being the thing that we're talking about. So being the foundation, carrying the entire weight of the house, being a roof rafter, carrying a full snow load, and so on. And just getting people to think about things in a very different way. He's very good at that. He's an infotainer, I would say. Very entertaining teacher. So I think that's one thing that's very different, is this holistic approach to building, where we do look at all of the different systems. We break them down over a 2-week period. The foundations class, for instance, talks about 14 different types of foundations and why you would use any one of them over the other. And a big part of that topic is how it relates to the site. So certain foundations work well on sloping sites, on expansive soils, on flat sites that do not drain well, and so on. And so what we're really hoping to do is get our students to start thinking. So when they leave and they're out there in the wild making decisions about their house, really what they're doing is thinking about how each decision will impact the finished product. And while they're there, one of our focuses is teaching competence. So in addition to 4-hour lectures, I hate to use that word, but basically that's what it is, a 4-hour talkie about framing, for instance, we then step outside of the classroom and we frame a first floor platform. We frame walls, we frame a roof, and so on. We install windows. We talk about the importance of water resistant barriers and have them install that stuff, so that in addition to learning how to think, they also just feel empowered to do any of the different phases of construction. That's one thing that has changed a bit. I think in the 70s, our students were really excited about literally building their entire house. So they would graduate, they'd go on Uncle Henry's, they'd buy a used backhoe and start excavating their foundation. People aren't doing that today, right? For the most part, we have some students that are like that, but usually people just want to really understand what's happening in house building for two reasons. One, so that they can make good, informed decisions and not get run over by an architect or a GC that's just pushing a particular method of building. Um, and the other is to really understand the home so that you can live in it after it's built and not feel like the second anything goes wrong, you have to pick up the phone and call that particular trade and wait 3 months to get them out to fix a problem that may just take an hour in the afternoon to fix themselves.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen, more people wanting to come and participate in person like that? Or now it seems like, especially since post-COVID with Zoom and different, environments that are more comfortable for people to learn in that are maybe non-traditional. Are you seeing more people wanting to participate remotely? I mean, it's a certain component of this where after the talkie, you're not going to be able to go outside and cut an 8x8
Correct.
from Japan.
Yeah, definitely. And I also would just add to what Dad, you just said, you were describing our design build class, and really that's a building science specific course. We have two main courses, that design build course that's building science, not timber frame specific. And that's really a first principles course, meaning that we break everything down to its simplest form of what it is so that you can then make the decision of how you use that material, for example, or which material you're using. And then for the purely post and beam course, which is our timber framing specific course, so that's where their students are designing, engineering, cutting, and raising a 24 by 24 timber frame over the course of 5 days. That's an online course that it was before I was at Shelter when it was created, but it's been out for 5 years now, and we've seen thousands of students take that all around the world in many cases. And the popularity of it's funny because I think right now online courses are very popular, and sort of if you get on Instagram or if you use TikTok and you get on TikTok, you see a lot of people trying to sell online courses, and it's maybe not looked at differently now than it was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we still believe in the power of an online course because it's a less expensive monetarily, but time commitment way to take a course that, about something that you're really interested in. And in our case, we literally just had a film crew come in, which we can talk about a little bit more, but come in and record the course as if you're the student taking the course.
When sitting in the classroom or something.
Yeah, or like standing watching it happen, because the purely post and beam course, the timber framing course, is really all hands-on as opposed to the design build, which is lecture-based with some hands-on. And so we tried to make it as much like you're standing in the room with us as we're going through the motions of the course, which is cutting a timber frame. Mm-hmm. And definitely the popularity, I mean, every year it's gained traction, that course, which is usually the opposite of what you see with online courses. You get a big splash when you release it, and then it kind of sort of dies out over time. And I think that part of that is, like you said, people have become accustomed to getting exactly what they want when they want. You can buy an online course and start taking it that same minute. Mm-hmm. But then B, it's 5 days is a big, you're traveling to Maine for 5 days. That's a big commitment. This is a
hotel expense.
Totally. Yeah.
So the lobsters are cheaper here though. So.
Yeah, sure. You save on lobsters.
And better.
Yeah. So that makes it more accessible. Mm-hmm. On an international scale, really, or a platform. And so more people can learn how to do this. And in those classes, are they also learning like the nuance of being their own GC? Because to me, that's like a whole different role than being the guy they're both important and necessary.
Yeah, sure. Not in the timber frame class. That is really very just timber frame specific, teaching the physical skills, for cutting and joining a timber frame and the engineering of it and so on. But in the 2-week design build class, yes, we talk about that a lot. A good GC does an absolutely phenomenal job at choreographing a build. That's that's a very difficult job. And when it's done well, it's an amazing thing to watch because you just see a house get built from start to finish without significant interruption. And you're talking, 5, 6, 7, 8, a dozen different trades, depending on
Yeah.
exactly how the house is getting built, all showing up at the right time,
Yeah.
the appropriate time for that specific thing to get done. This is a big challenge for the DIYer because DIYer is bringing one foundation job to the foundation contractor, one framing job to the framer, and so on. So we talk about a lot of different ways to reach those sub trades. A lot of our students do actually act as their own GC, and so we give them pointers from things we've learned in 50 years of teaching to help them, dive into the trades and get good qualified tradespeople, and impress upon them the importance of the intersections. So it's
Yeah.
always the intersections in construction that cause trouble. So for instance, the company that is excavating for the foundation needs to be able to communicate very carefully with the company that's going to be placing the footings and placing the walls, so that there are no surprises. No one likes surprises in construction.
Well, I think that you're right. And also, I think the notion of a timber frame kit is a step in the right direction toward more people being able to do this, because they're not like, oh man, I have to buy a bandsaw and I got to go cut down a hemlock tree. And, so they're skipping over that part. But still, the notion of like coordinating a foundation and making sure the wall's on it the right way, because most people like freak out. So this makes that part of it more approachable to the folks who might want to do that. But this is kind of a segue into like, who are the builders of the future? Because I think that when your mom and dad started Shelter, there was this movement that was going around in a time where there was not really broad access to technology and information. And so either people saw that article in the newspaper if they were a subscriber of the paper, or stumbled upon some kind of article that were written scholarly about it. Now everybody in the world can have access to what you're doing and what we're doing here today on the smartphone in their pocket.
Sure.
And so that inspires more people, I would say, but also leaves a lot more people saying, well, what the hell am I supposed to do with this inspiration, And to me, that points more toward kit homes and more toward, this is accessible because the scary part of figuring out where the wall goes, like we already took care of that for you guys. And so I'd kind of like to segue into what you see as a vision of who are the builders of the future. What are they learning? This component is still an important part of our craftsmanship and the way in which we do things. That I think there'll always be a demand for learning, but what can more of the masses learn that would maybe be applicable? Does that make sense? And how do kits fall into that with a more comprehensive kind of completion of what's being delivered to the site?
Sure. I think there's kind of two things to look at with that. One is product design. So as time goes on, products get designed so that they're easier to use, easier for people to use. You look at like the simplest example is Steve Jobs did a real bang up job with the iPhone. Very easy to use. Everybody can kind of pick it up and understand how to use it. And I think that first, building technology will start to go in that direction, because as there's much more demand for a much greater housing demand, and there aren't necessarily as many people getting into the trades right now as we need to keep up with that, inevitably that means that the skill may be lower compared to the past generation of blue collar workers. And so what needs to happen then is that the product needs to get excellent and needs to be easy to use, easy to install, and also have fewer failure points. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is, I really believe that the builders of the future are just people that believe they're competent. And that's really all we're teaching at Shelter Institute. That we teach, obviously, like Dad said, the 14 different basements types, and you'll wire an outlet and things like that. But beyond that, the most important thing about these courses that we teach are that anybody is a competent human being. They just need to believe that they're competent and they can
Yeah,
accomplish
I
it.
mean, do you think that when Lewis and Clark were headed west trapping, that they stumbled upon people and then asked like, hey, did you go to a class to build this cabin for yourself? No. But we live in a world in which we're told that the only way in order to do something is you got to be like an expert in it and
Right.
more and more in this. And then people end up doing nothing
Mm-hmm.
because they're just verklempt and they think, oh my God, am I even qualified to go outside now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I have a permit for that?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel approachable. And even so in building with codes, I know that there's different way in which timber frames are looked at within
Mhm.
code and so forth. But even still, it's not like it was in the early 1900s where you could order your Sears kit home and just have it delivered to your door. And you've shared with me some cool stuff that they used to have back then with financing and everything all
Mhm.
built in one. But there was no code officer that was coming by and that's not the right flashing around that chimney, or the pitch on your roof is not accurate or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, I think these are all good and put in place for a good reason. With
Totally.
shelter, I'm sure you guys get behind building with quality and done in the exact right way to keep people safe and have structures last more than just one generation.
Mhm.
And that is a little bit my concern about maybe the commoditization of the building sector, if you
Mhm.
will, going too far in a direction where we're just building stuff that, like everything else in our life, is thrown away.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do you find that happy medium between, all right, this is sustainable, it's good for the environment, but it's going to last a long time and not just,
Sure.
Totally.
I think that you've hit the nail on the head, so to speak. Yeah, that's a big thing. We always like to assess a building by asking, is it durable, is it sustainable, and is it adaptable? Those three things we think are the best, clearest path to a green build, to an environmentally friendly build, however you want to describe it. Those three things are the things that make a building last a long time. Um, Building it in a way that is sustainable. We can build buildings like this over and over and over again without, um, you know, robbing the forest of all of the trees and destroying the environment. And then the last one, is it adaptable? Can the building change as the needs of the occupants change? That's what allows a building to last. We've all seen, huge properties purchased and seemingly decent homes just torn down because they didn't meet the needs of the subsequent owner. A good building is adaptable, so it's easy to change.
that's part of the appeal of
Inside.
timber frame as a design, right? Where you have this balloon
Exactly.
structure that then inside the internal walls, you can be moved around or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah,
It
timber
really,
frame goes a long way towards answering yes to those three questions.
Yeah.
we're really building large cavities.
Yeah.
Like when we're building, is we're creating blank slates for obviously it's more complicated than that sounds, but creating blank slates for the occupants to do as they please because the structural aspect of the structure is taken care of.
Yeah.
So it's leaves a lot to the owner,
Yeah.
how they want to use it.
Well, it's a good, I think, segue into like some prototype work that you're working on right now. And previously on another episode, we had Ben Davis from Adra on talking about their product, which is utilizing PET recycled plastic to make building materials. And I understand you guys have been chatting a little bit about how you can incorporate that as a sheathing material. And we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, very excited to talk about this.
Cool.
So we've been when I first started working at Shelter, COVID had just happened. So that was one hurdle we were trying to clear, obviously. But beyond that, Dad said to me, figure out how to create housing for specifically people my age at the time, just out of college, living in apartments, that can get them out of apartments and get them into home ownership, not just for the, you know, the great American feeling of owning a home, but beyond that, so that they can create real equity for themselves and generations to come in their family.
Love it.
And so we started working on a kit home, and we basically wanted to create a 2-bed, 1.5 bath, roughly 1,200 square foot house that could be used as a starter home. It could be used as your forever home, what you're retiring into. But it had to be affordable. It had to have bulletproof bones, meaning that it could be stripped back to the bones of the structure, the structural and insulation, and then changed in any way to, like Dad just said, fit the next occupant. And it needed to use first principles thinking, meaning that we looked at a lot. There are some huge companies, European companies selling wall systems to a lot of American builders that are great quality wall systems, but they're made of 14 or 15 layers. And what we did is peel through excellent wall systems that were on the market and try to look at how we could use different materials to combine several of those layers, which save generally not only in material costs, but also the labor to install them into the wall system. And so we really, basically the number one rule for this kit right out of the gates was anytime there are 3 steps, we need to make that one step. And it doesn't matter how long that takes for us to figure out how to do that. That's what we're going to do with these kits. And we're calling they're shelter kits. And we have, what's funny about that is that we started working on it about 1 year before we met Ben Davis of Adra, and he came in to just introduce himself because they moved in right down the street from shelter actually he didn't bring any of his material at the first meeting. He was literally just introducing himself and started to tell us what he was working on. And we were like, wow, we've got to meet with him. So we quickly met with him and some other members of the Adra team. We're all great people and great product that they have and they're working on. And basically we are developing a panel sort of within Shelter Institute to meet what we're looking for the kits. And we're partnering with Adra on the manufacturing side to actually bring that panel to life for these kit homes, which the go-to-market kit home will be roughly 1,200 square foot, 2-bed, 1.5 bath, but still have a beautiful timber frame, different than the way we do our custom timber frames at Shelter Design Build. It's glulam, but expose timber structure on the interior of the weather-tight shell.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's amazing because, we're trying to get more affordable options out for people. And even, a very simple but well-built manufactured home, 1,200 square feet right now, 3-bed, 2-bath, with land is right around 300,000, and that's with modest land cost by the time you get the home and the setup and the driveway and all that. So it's like you actually, you have to be making about 95,000 a year to buy a $300,000 home. So it's a lot of this just comes down to math.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot of times, particularly the type of building that you do is extremely high quality, very design, architecturally pleasing and so forth. And most people want that.
Exactly.
I haven't met like a person that had less financial resources that says I want to live in a less than property.
That's been a big goal of ours is to create an affordable house that someone would be just so proud to own that gives you joy. A home that you walk into and you just want to be there. When you're at work, you can't wait to get home because you like your house so much.
Yeah. And I can actually, we have timber frame in our own home, where my wife and I live. And when we bought the home, I actually called an engineered friend of mine and I was like, man, you got to come look at these beams. I'm a little bit worried because one of them had this giant split that's going all the way down, like the majority of the side of it. And he's like, that's probably been that way since like 1987 when they built this, And I'm like, okay. And I was like a little still wary. So I went up and put like a little pencil mark, where the joint comes together just to see if there's any shifting. Has it moved at all? In like 4 years.
We don't like to call those splits. We call those checks.
Checks, character checks. So I'm curious, what would your dad have thought of all this in 1974? The idea that someone was, we barely bought bottled water in 1974, and now we're trying to use those bottles to make houses.
Yeah. Dad's dad is behind this 100%. He sees the need. There's very clear need. And he feels strongly that we should be working to make people's lives better. That's an important part of what Shelter does. And that's what we're trying to do with these kits is create just an absolutely wonderful experience, pride of ownership. If you own something that you really love, you're going to take much better care of it. And it's going to bring you joy in life.
Is there a way to it seems to me that more is going toward the route, forgive me for my terminology, but more the route of installer within the construction industry because of technology's ability to kind of like pre-engineer and pre-bake decisions that a human brain would have to make on site. And so is there a way to create like a tribe of installers, if you will, for these homes? Because I still feel like the vast majority, I'm like 38, millennials, and I keep referring to this generational thing, but I think it's part of it, right?
Sure.
Like you grew up in an era where you were out working with your dad and he grew up on a farm, and now you're blessed that your son was around this, but somehow if he has children, he's going to have to ingrain this too, maybe. And it just seems less and less, right?
Sure.
And more, not that people don't want to do anything, but unless they're sure that what they're engaging in is going to result in a good outcome, then they just don't head down that road. So could there be, or is there a vision of some kind of tribe of installers for these homes that could go?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're hoping that these will, we're targeting Maine to start, but we want these kits to be able to be used all across the country because there's a need for it everywhere, for workplace, housing, as well as people who want a second home. And we want people all across the country to be able to get a kit that is then put together by a local contractor.
Yeah.
And that is another one of our goals in creating this kit, is that it needs to be simple to build, so that when the GC or the installer receives the kit, there isn't a giant eye roll and 21 days of reading instructions.
Yeah.
It needs to be intuitive.
Is there like going to be some kind of like time lapse video or something that demonstrates like if you're organized, you don't like make 57 runs to Home Depot, then you can get this done in like 21 days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've been building at Shelter over the past 5 years is our media department, which is largely videographers and editors, and that's used for online courses, but it's also allowed us to grow and build a platform so that we can distribute instructional videos to general contractors. So we can have contractors that have taken our course on how to put these structures together, so that clients, have contractors that they can trust for these, but also so that, staying true to our roots, the doer person can take this course and put this together on their own. It's a shell. So we would love to get to the point where it's like a Sears home and the sink comes with it. The go-to-market product is a weather-tight shell with windows, doors, and metal roofing. But even if the person is able to do the shell on their own, and then they choose a floor plan with the structure that has all of the construction drawings necessary for either the GC, if they're doing it, or the client to manage, that gives them a huge head start financially in that they've created the shell weather tight. They can take a breath. They don't need to be sprinting to get the thing finished then. But also then they can hand off the construction drawings based on the floor plan they chose to a local contractor who will walk in and it looks like walking into a stick-framed house as far as like the electric MEP and everything goes. So it's very straightforward to take it over and do all the incredible finishing work that these general contractors and subcontractors do.
Or you could just get an outhouse and
do
like those cabins on the West used to be.
Yeah.
So the idea is a weather-tight shell that somebody can then go in and finish off at their leisure. Now, I'm a little curious, like, how does the financing work for most people on these? Because there's going to be a subset that's just a cash buyer, but like, will a bank finance just a shell, or how do you guys?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's going to need to be, it's just like foundation is a very important component in the overall construction.
Yeah.
This super insulated airtight shell is just that for the build.
Yeah. So,
and that being said, we work with, our clients currently with our product finance. We basically essentially build a shell for our clients that they do get finance, and we're talking with, like you said, we're launching this in Maine. So talking with local banks about how we could make that a reality, because
we're recording in the Skowhegan Savings Studio, so we better get halfway done for this. Yeah. But yeah, eventually 2.0 of that could be maybe like a bathroom module or something that gets delivered and plugged in or somehow. Yeah.
Basically, we just want to get it to market, our MVP, and then build from there how we can add on to it, essentially.
Hopefully we can help you with foundations pretty soon.
Yes.
Printing some prototypes right now. So It's exciting really to see this evolution of a company that now is into its third generation that's really been focused on helping educate people and bring more people into the fold. Because I think a lot of times, particularly in construction, there's a lot of turf wars and people are like not wanting to share as much of their knowledge because that's like job protection, yet we're all sinking together because we need more people out there doing it.
Mhm.
And so this can run the gamut from folks that want to learn how to be a better steward of their own project, overseeing someone else's work, right through to folks that are learning about, these new kit prototypes. And you'll have a large audience already to really speak to. So that's exciting. I want to talk a little bit about, this is a little bit more niche, but you have your own tool shop. I didn't even realize this until recently. That's neat.
Yeah, so this is a part of the business that we started in 1978 as a way to get good quality tools into the hands of our students. And it was my mom, Patsy, that took the lead on this. And she absolutely loved tools. And so she started sourcing tools from all over the world. We really got into Japanese hand tools. They've been timber framing for thousands of years. We've been timber framing for a couple hundred years. So they have a very highly refined and specific set of tools for timber framing, but also for woodworking in general. One of our favorite Japanese tools is the Japanese handsaw, which cuts on the pull stroke. And it is, if you've never used one, it's sort of a life-altering experience. If you've used a Western saw your whole life and then you pick up a Japanese saw, just amazing. So Blueberry manages that tool store. She does an absolutely phenomenal job. It has largely become an e-commerce business, but the brick mortar experience at our little campus in Woolwich is also amazing. Walking through the tool store, being able to pick up, handle the tools, and also, if you're interested, step into our timber framing shop, see them being used, ask a timber framer, which slick do you prefer? Which chisel do you prefer? And so on. So it's a great, in-person experience as well.
I've got to go back and check out the tool shop. When I was down there, I missed that somehow. Last year, we had our first child, and I decided I want to build his crib from scratch.
Nice.
That I was really fortunate to find someone that had a good shop because I totally underestimated. At first I'm like, oh, I got my Milwaukee 18-volt battery operated pack with my table saw and everything. I got everything I need to build this crib for my son. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm over at his house using the planer and joiner and all this kind of stuff and like rabbiting, this stuff. And I learned a lot from this person. A lot of that knowledge was somehow evaporated from 7th grade shop class, but it was really therapeutic. I looked forward to doing it. And, if I had a shop at my own home, I think I would probably do woodworking more frequently. It's just something to smell that sawdust. And then you put it together and you're like, oh,
Created something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it therapy as well.
yeah.
That's a perfect description.
Yeah, and you're inspiring more people to do that, which is really great. So now you have this global audience. You're working on a really innovative prototype that I think is really going to move some things. In addition to all the great work you've already done, what are you most excited about? I guess with all that's brewing.
Wow, that's a tough one. To be honest with you, for me, I'm at a very different place in life than Clayton, so he might have a different answer. For me, the thing I'm most excited about is the third generation getting involved in this business at a time when my dad can still experience it. Sadly, we lost my mom in 2006, but this is just so exciting. There is an absolutely vibrant energy in the business, and I think a large part of that is that the third generation is here and very excited about the business.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm excited about all the cool projects we have going on at Shelter right now, but I have loved watching our team grow and develop at Shelter. I've only been working at Shelter for 5 years, so over the past 5 years, grow and develop. And wow, I'm so excited for my whole career, watching that team continue to grow and develop and see the insane output that our team has been able to put together by basically just being high agency people with a sense of urgency. And it's been so fun to be a part of that team. And really, like going to work every day is truly very exciting because there's always an update on something that is happening, and we sort of always have really exciting projects going on in each of the business sectors: shelter tools, shelter courses, and shelter design build. So it's just being part of that team. I feel so lucky, very excited to spend my career with this team.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great because it's based here in Maine, but you have the ability to reach out so much more broadly now. And, almost like the AP article that was written about your parents back in the 70s, there's the ability to create one of those almost every day, with social media and this platform. But it's exciting to see someone, or an organization, I should say, that has such an amount of purpose, and then sharing that purpose, with the world. It's inspiring, and I really am impressed that this is in our state and that you all have done such a great job stewarding this organization to hand it on to another generation that I hope will continue to inspire people. Because yes, we own a real estate company at Pouliot Real Estate. We love to help people buy and sell homes. But if those homes don't exist, or there aren't enough to take the friction out of the market, it causes real life problems for people. And so this is all part of that solution toward building community. That is, I think, necessary in order for us to help address the housing crisis, but also to bring people back to a sense of like, what is real life really about? Like, I was building a rock wall this weekend, and I'm like, man, the cavemen used to do this shit, and like our forefathers built homes,
There's just something amazing about creating something with your hands. It's really, therapeutic, cathartic.
Yeah.
So
And
just such a good sense of being.
But especially seeing like someone like Clayton too, who's been in a world like that's just constantly bombarded with this, and obviously through an upbringing that was, by design, kept on a path of like, hey, I understand how to use all that stuff, but we're still going to ground it in reality, and like we're actually going to show people how to solve this problem.
Right.
Like, we're the pragmatic people over here with an actual solution to apply, as opposed to just more talking heads, which there are plenty of.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is also definitely part of the reason, like, no matter with these kits that we're developing and doing online courses, Shelter Institute will always have in-person courses in Woolwich, Maine. We'll always, have our custom design, build, traditionally cut and raised timber frames. That will always be a core part of our business because that's what allows us to actually teach it and to actually talk with students and help them through problems that they're having in the field, but also develop new products because we've run into the same problem 15 times, things like that. So it's and
Well,
it's great
it's great
content.
that a guy like me, like, can turn, or someone like me around the world can turn to a guy like you that's been through it 15 times and be like, hey, I'm just going to trust what Shelter's saying because they've done this like 15 times, Same too with the kit homes when it gets to that point, the smaller, more affordable ones, somebody being able to see, all right, I watched this YouTube video, I see how it went together. They don't drive to your site and see you in person, but they get the same experience. So thank you for doing that and sharing it with people, because it's critical in order to close the chasm between where we're at right now and the way we're doing things and what people see as reality.
Yes.
So there's a lot of exciting things happening on the forefront, but I did want to just ask, for folks who are listening today, they want to learn more about what you're doing, where should they turn?
So shelterinstitute.com is a great place to learn about our company, but really if you just look up Shelter Institute on YouTube or any meta platforms, Instagram, Facebook, you can see us working. We record a lot of our job sites as well as classes, so you can really see everything that we're about on specifically YouTube to be able to see long form who we are and what we do.
That's exciting. Well, Clayton and Gaius, thank you very much for making the trek up here to Augusta. And it's the first time we've done a in-person with two people in a studio. We borrowed this really cool studio from the Augusta Boys and Girls Club in the Downtown Alliance. And so thanks for hopping in here in the Skowhegan Savings Studio to try this out. Two people at once. So I like it.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for all the great work you're doing at Shelter. And we'll continue to share and spread the gospel with you.